The Kooks of Kambala, as I like to call them, but they call themselves the Kingdom of Kambala. When I saw them on my timeline, I felt like I had to talk about this because it reminded me so much of that Nature Boy situation. If you don't know about the Nature Boy situation, there are tons of videos covering the cult and its demise and the demise of its charismatic leader, who called himself Nature Boy. The cult was called Carbonation or Melanation. And this scenario, it seemed to me like, oh my God, this is Melanation, Carbonation 2.0 to some degree. What I want you to keep in mind is that these people are not victims. They present themselves as though they are victims, but I can assure you they are not. And pinky promise, if you stick around, you will see that they are actually the perpetrators of great harm that they themselves have admitted to, and are very proud to say that we have committed this harm because you have gone against their God or whatever. Is actually really sinister. And what I want people to realize is that this is not a joke. These people are not doing this because for a bit. It's not for a laugh. They're not trolling the government of Scotland. Like, they believe that they are, in fact, who they say they are. But I'm coming to that later, how they present themselves through the media like these victims of hate crimes and discrimination versus what they actually believe in their website, etc. We're coming to that later. So hold on and don't go anywhere. But right now we're going to get into the video, and we're going to start with chapter 1. And to get out and explore a little. That's the cryptic message Akira Taylor, single mother of one, left to her family before she disappeared with her daughter. Her family was terrified and fearing for the worst. Akira was registered as a missing person. And the reason why her family feared so much was because, based on how they interacted with the press and social media, it seemed that Akira never had the habit of simply disappearing or exploring a little. So they said that she was brought up in an overprotected and religious household. But Akira wasn't lost. There's no clear information as to how the family managed to realize where Akira was and how they got these messages that she would give to them, and how long it took since her disappearance for them to file that report or anything of that nature. But what we do know is that those initial messages outside of social media that were given to the family and the leaking of her location could have come from a third party that we will get to later, that she initially tried to bring into the cult when she got there. At some point in time, she released a statement, obviously when she was found out, stating that I'm not lost, I'm not a child, I'm not helpless, I'm grown. So a lot of headlines you would hear them saying, Akira said she's a grown woman, leave me alone, that kind of thing. Maybe, hear me out, maybe you're not that grown. Maybe you need somebody who's a little more grown than you to help you out. I don't know, because these decisions, girl. But I also do believe that sometimes these groups, in this case this 2-person religious organization, they prey on people who are not very mature and who are away from the pack, or who are easily dislocated from the pack, who are hurt and injured. So imagine in real life, this is what I've come to realize, like a lot of these people are actually predators. And just like how in the wild predators search for the weak ones, the ones lingering behind the pack, whether it's because it's a mother with a baby, or it's because it's old, or because the animal is injured. They seek out people who have some disconnection to a familial group or something of that nature, who have mental and emotional wounds. It's so scary that human beings, we think we're so distant from the animal kingdom, but we are literally just like them, even worse, because we do this not because of survival, but because we can. It's scary being human. Akira said she was grown. That's what Akira said. Akira said, I'm grown, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. And furthermore, she also sent some social media messages talking about the fact that her family apparently sexually abused her, which kind of falls in line with what I believe and what makes these people so susceptible to these kinds of strange organizations. Emotional wounds, mental wounds, and the family denies it, but I have reason to believe Akira's side of the story, because a lot of families, when sexual things have been perpetrated against their young people under their care, they, for whatever reason, and I suspect to kind of just preserve the familial bonds, they kind of just sweep it under the carpet. Oh, don't worry what Uncle Roger did to you. It's okay. I don't believe you. And I think that could have actually happened. It literally makes sense because they preyed on her. Your family doesn't care about you. You went through all this stuff. Nobody stood up for you. Come join the dark side. Come join our organization. Here you'll be loved. Here you'll be given all the attention you'd. Here you'll be protected. And that is one of the things that Akira had said. She had said that on one of her social media posts, because they're very active on social media for people who don't want to have anything to do with the system. But Akira had said that she feels protected and that she doesn't want for anything of any nature being under the stewardship of Queen Nandi and King Asheshe. That's not how they pronounce his name, but I am not giving him the respect of pronouncing it properly. So if you want proper pronunciation, you will have to go elsewhere. So, makes sense. So now that we have this character development of who Akira was, mind you, this is not who she is. I believe that this is who Akira is in her weakest state, being a victim of whatever this is going on here, the goings on of this couple. I genuinely believed something happened to Akira in that home. People who grow up in healthy homes where they feel safe and loved do not go and they don't join cults. This is a theory because I'm not a philosopher, but I will say that people join cults for different reasons. And many of the people who form the lower echelon of the cult, who are like kind of the worker ants, I like to call them, tend to be people who have issues from home and aren't loved or feel alone or suffering from mental health issues, etc., etc. The other tiers of the cult, obviously, you're dealing with more charismatic people, narcissists, sociopaths, people who have agendas, who don't care about people, right? But for the most part, the worker ants, the people who give their lives to these people, who will drink the Kool-Aid, they tend to be the ones left at the back of the pack. Akira was found to be living with these two people, King Asheshe and Queen Nandi, mother of 7, queen in the kingdom of Kubala. How did Akira manage to connect to the kingdom of Kubala? Akira, as we know, she was born in 2003, so she was 21 years old. She lived with her aunt. She graduated fairly recently. In school was when a classmate introduced her to this group called the Kingdom of Kubala. We don't know how this interaction was between Akira and this classmate. It could have been something simply for laughs, like, oh my God, look how silly these people look. They believe this and that, and it could have been for fun, we don't know. Or it could have been something more sinister, where it could have been an initiation, right? Where this person is recruiting. We don't know. However, based on how it looks, it doesn't seem as though the person who introduced Akira to the group was also part of this kingdom, because since the inception of their social media presence, from what I've seen, it's been All Lady Safi, Queen Nandi, and this King Asheshe. So we don't know what was going on with that classmate. We also don't have any information on if Akira began contacting this group that same time as she was introduced, or other things happened and she eventually got reconnected with this kingdom of Kubala, and how that even all started. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that we don't know how she was recruited, if she was recruited or she just volunteered herself. To say that it's trafficking at this point is a little off, but hold on. come into it. You just stay there. So she obviously met them through the internet, and that is how they spread their gospel. Well, it's not a gospel because they don't believe that they are Christians or anything like that. They are specifically Hebrews, the original Hebrews, one of the lost 12 tribes, I believe. Now, joke about this, there are so many people claiming to be the lost tribes of Hebrewism or Hebrews. At this point, it's not 13 tribes or whatever. It's definitely 50 and counting. So of all of y'all, 99.9% of y'all have to be fake at this point. That's what I think, because every 2 weekdays somebody's popping up and saying they are the lost tribe of Israel or whatever. They are the lost tribe of Israel, right? So they spread their message on social media. They have a TikTok, they have a Facebook, I don't know if they have an Instagram, and they also do have a kind of website blog thing, right? Which is going to be a big part of this later on, because that blog shows you their true core beliefs versus what they told the Scottish News casters when they went to interview them. So buckle in. We do know that Akira, from the interaction with these people, it was from that interaction that she suddenly got the mind to disconnect herself from her family and just post through this Lady Safi social media and have nothing to do with her family. So although there's no hardcore evidence of there being a trail of electronic messages, the act and the coincidence of her disconnect from her family really started when she decided to launch herself into being part of this group. Even though we don't know what was said, something was said, maybe a certain criteria, who knows, for her to get into this group, that she could no longer really contact her family because they are from Edom and they are basically the devil's children. I don't know, they never said that, but from how they talk about the Edomites, I think, girl, they might be the devil's children. So based on what the authorities know about the tracking of Akira's movement, was that she left Texas on March the 25th, 2024, and entered the UK on a 6-month tourist visa, of course, keeping her connection to the tribe completely hidden. Now, Akira didn't move alone. She left with her daughter, and the daughter was taken away from her. We're not going to delve deep into how the child was taken away. What was that like for her? Because to be quite fair, that has been shrouded in mystery. People always ask what became of her daughter, like where is the girl? And all we know is that the child was taken away from her, as Queen Nandi's 7 children had been taken away from her because of child endangerment and child cruelty charges being dropped. Which, if you think about it, if you see their living situation, they live in tents in the bush. It's not going to be hard for those charges to be dropped and for them to stick. So that's why her daughter isn't there. And people are asking, where's her daughter? I haven't seen any information as to where her daughter is based on the research. It could very well be that the daughter may be in the hands of the social services in Scotland, or perhaps maybe at home with relatives. But for whatever reason, that information just isn't circulating as freely in the public. So her daughter was removed from the situation, and Nandi's children were also removed from the situation. So for the most of this discussion is going to be about King Asheshe, Queen Nandi, and Lady Safi. So who was this King Asheshe? King Asheshe was given the name at birth of Kofi Ofe, and he's 36 years old, of course, born in 1989. He was a lot of people are saying he's a failed opera singer, but from my experience watching his YouTube, he was kind of good. I don't know the reasons why that career didn't quite kick off for him, but he was really good in my opinion. He sang really well, and so I would prefer to use the word retired. He was a retired opera singer and apparently an ex-PR agent for somebody, perhaps himself. Perhaps himself. And of course, he's the king of Kumbala. But these are the careers that I got when I researched. I don't know much about Kofi besides what people from their countries have said about them, who would have likely known them in their circle, known of them in their circle, or known them personally. So Kofi is from Ghana. And based on how I saw his interview, I think he had an interview that he did one time. He had an interview and he was so articulate. He would post videos on his Kingdom of Kumbala YouTube channel from approximately 9 to 11 years. It would have been him in completely normal Western attire singing, and then from onwards he started dressing in these kind of indigenous apparel. I don't really know what's going on there, but he would sing his opera while dressed like this, and then suddenly it morphed into him dressed how he was dressed with the Hebrew words marked on their faces, and he would like sing his own songs. Now, at first, I thought that the songs that I saw on his YouTube were like some language that originated in Africa that I didn't know about, but then I realized, oh my God, I suspect, and I could be wrong, that this may have been the early origins of the language of the Kubala Kingdom. So he might have been experimenting in his songs with this language of the Kubala Kingdom. Now, enough about Kofi, because now we're going on to Queen Nandi. The Queen Nandi is 43 years old and she's from Zimbabwe. Not much is really known about Queen Nandi, so all of this that I'm telling you right now are things that people from her culture and her society have said online that kind of gives me hope as to this kind of person that she was before. So Queen Nandi actually seemed to be of somebody who believed a lot in justice. You saw this way back in the past when someone who was one of her fellow congregation members on Facebook has stated that she actually attended a church called Agape. And in Agape, there was some controversy that happened with the pastor. I believe it was one sexual in nature. She definitely stood up and was one of the loudest people who was against his behavior. Of course, eventually she had to leave the church. As with all of these religious institutions, they tend to be very culty in my experience. So it doesn't surprise me that she eventually had to leave. Now, a lot of this information that I'm going to tell you, again, is just people who have said that they know of her. I will tell you what I believe is true, and I'll tell you what I don't believe is true, because there's so many things that are going around about Queen Nandi, from the rumors, really, what people have said about her before, like this debacle, seemed to be a woman who had her shit down, packed. Like, she provided for her family, and she was one of those women who looked really pretty. Have you seen her daughter? Her oldest daughter is gorgeous. She seemed to be somebody who really, really, really cared for her children. And they showed pictures of inside her home before all of this. A large sprawling bed for at least all her children to sleep comfortably. And they had a really nice house. It was really put together. Her children were always dressed well. Not this. So it was a complete 180 degree from that to child cruelty, which is understandable if you have children living in the woods in a tent without running water, a proper place to use the bathroom. They don't know when they're going to get food. Your parents work nowhere. And basically you're living under the stars, which is absolutely unacceptable in today's society. Nandi claims that she's very educated. In one of her videos, when child welfare services came, I don't know at what point they took her children from her, but I believe that she had run-ins with these child protective services in Scotland for a while, because her last baby isn't even with her. She seems to speak well, so I'm thinking maybe she has like a really good grasp of the English language, especially since that might not actually be her first and only language. By the way, King Acheshe is the father of the last two, meaning that she had 5 children before she met him. And this is important because it's going to go again with my discussion of who are the types of people who fall into cults. I don't know too much about certain cultures, any culture besides mine, to be honest, in depth, but I do know that sometimes when people have a lot of children, they aren't seen as washed up. So it would make sense why Nandi would fall in love with this King Asheshe guy, right? And he may have given her this feeling like he's her savior. She finally found that person who's gonna love and accept her, even though the rest of her society may have found her to be washed up. Now, rumor has it that Queen Nandi was married before. This is what the rumors say. I don't know essentially if this is true, but she was married before. Her husband, this is a rumor. I don't know if this is true, but I will say that it may corroborate something that we'll discuss even later. Stay tuned because I'm telling you it gets dark. Please. The rumor says that Queen Nandi, or Jean, as she was known before, was obsessed with Kris Jenner, and she was obsessed with the Kardashians, and she wanted to be exactly like the Kardashians. So what she did was she had so many children, and her husband before has said, please stop having children. For whatever reason, he clearly might be having concerns about welfare, finances, all of these things. And she said, and she did not want to. This is the rumor from people who know of her. She wanted to become a billionaire like Kris Jenner, and so she just kept having children. That's what they said. I don't know how true that is, but one thing about Nandi is that she is very money hungry. But we will talk about that later. So we know a little bit about Nandi. I really tried to search to see if Nandi had any school degrees, certificates, or anything like that, because maybe she did a trade before. Perhaps she was like a seamstress of some sort. Anything that would make her look less of a baby lottery machine. I couldn't find anything, and I was actually really disappointed. It's really important to talk about the love shared between the king and his queen, because I think their complete romance together kind of sets the stage of one of my hypotheses about this whole situation that I will discuss very shortly. So King Asheshe, apparently people said he was a bum, but because of his opera and such, he didn't look like that on the outside. But apparently that's what the streets have been saying, is that it wasn't really going too well for him. He didn't have much money. Now I'll call her Jean and I'll call him Kofi until they start with this whole debacle, this nonsense, until they start going off the kooky end. I'll call them king and queen. But right now you have to understand that you gotta rewind all the way, because this is before they started doing all of these crazy things. So it would seem like Jean or Jean, however you call her name, she was in the UK. I don't know where she was, right? But she was somewhere in that region. And Kofi was actually back in Zimbabwe. These are the rumors, and I don't know if all of them are true. How the legend goes is that Jean, she fell in love with him. And I don't know how that sweet talking went, but she decided to bring him into Scotland. She decided to bring him overseas. When he first came here, according to what the peeps have been saying online, basically he was poor, but she presented it to seem as though he was well off and super wealthy. So what happened was that you would see pictures online of her saying he was a business owner, and then posed up together, and he would have shades and stuff, and looking real dapper. They were looking real cute. They were looking like a cute, well-off, ordinary couple. And there's nothing wrong with being ordinary. There's nothing wrong with being normal. There's nothing wrong with being Western. But they were dressed in Western clothing, looking cool, looking dandy. And a lot of this was her suggesting that he was such a wealthy businessman. He's taking care of her, all of these things. I think that could also be logged into the X-Files of some corroborative evidence as to maybe Nandi's perception on wealth. This love story doesn't just end there. So Nandi would often describe him as her Boaz. Now, I've got to sit up for this because, as you know, I've been dipping and dabbling in Christianity, evangelical Christianity. The issue that I have with this story is the answer probably to this whole debacle it goes to the story of Boaz. So she would call him Boaz. And if you know the story of Boaz in the Bible, it has to do with Ruth. Ruth was this Moabite, and she lived with the Moabites. If you know about the Moabites, they're not like people. Apparently the Hebrews didn't like them. Nobody liked them, apparently. I don't know. Moabite propaganda. But based on the story, they're not really liked. I don't know why. Don't ask me this. But they were kind of like considered dogs in a sense. Strange way to talk about people. But that's kind of what the Bible kind of alluded to. Like, So that's where she came from. But she married Naomi's son. Who is Naomi? So this story is basically about two women in the Bible, the book of Ruth, who scheme to get into the good graces of Boaz, who is a wealthy man. At the end of the day, the book is not about Boaz. The book is about two women who decided to scheme and plot their way into the bed and into the marriage of a wealthy man. Because Boaz, to be honest, it didn't have to be Boaz. It could have been whoever. But Naomi was the puppeteer as the mother of Ruth's dead husband. So Ruth's husband had died, and Naomi, being his mother, based on their culture, was kind of tethered to her. So Ruth kind of wanted to go somewhere that's a lot more prosperous, because apparently where they were, things weren't looking too good. I don't know if it was famine or something. And they decided to go where it was prosperous. When they went, funnily enough, Naomi, because her son was a Judean immigrant, right? So when they went back to Judea, Naomi, of course, knew the culture, and she said, girl, we're going to have to get you a rich husband, because she was like, we ain't going to be sleeping on the streets for too long. So Naomi, she scammed and she weaseled her way, and she did her little stuff. And eventually Ruth got a job. Now, was it by chance she got a job working for Boaz? Absolutely not. People don't realize, like, it was scam and scheme. Kris Jenner has nothing on Naomi. Like, I'm telling you, I honestly feel like Kris Jenner studied Naomi. Before you know it, she's like catching his eye, and Naomi is telling her where to go work so that he could see you, where to go work so he could lay his eyes on you. And before long, now you're hearing second verse, chapter whatever, she sneaks in and into his bedroom, and she's laying at his feet. Now they say laying at his feet is like a synonymous, or like another way of saying schmecks. They had schmecks. And that's where my concern comes in, because you can't consent while you're asleep, and men have consent as well. So this is an all-wrong, disgusting situation. But that's what the story is about. But you could see the clear themes that come about when it comes to Queen Nandi. Queen Nandi was a woman who was, I guess, kind of disgraced in a sense by her own culture, having all these children, likely divorced based on what I've read online, and had now met this guy named Kofi. I don't know if he was enamored by her or it was the opposite way around, but she really took a liking to him, because she brought him from wherever he was. I don't know if he was in Ghana, but she brought him from wherever he was into the UK, right? This checks out. This Boaz story of her saying, you're my Boaz, Kofi is my Boaz. It's kind of like a savior complex. This knight in shining armor, this guy who is supposed to be like mature and protective. Supposedly that's what they say. I think Boaz was a victim, but we're not gonna go there. So he didn't only just come into her life and give her love and companionship, but he also saved her from the social stigma that was on her, similar to the way Boaz saved Ruth and Naomi from the social stigma of being a widow or whatever that they had on them in that Bible story that she keeps referring to. The reason why I think this is corroborative evidence to the fact that she really might like money, and loving money is nothing wrong, but it's really, really deceitful when you create your whole persona as being this earthy lady and nature rules. You don't want to have anything to do with Edom, but you want pound sterling. You want Edom money, right? This will be one sterling. Because you're not using Kumbala coins. You understand what I'm saying? You're not using little Kumbala coins. You're not using twigs. You're not using leaves. You're not using coffee beans. You're using pound sterling. So it's really annoying when they create this image that they are so prone to nature. I think like this also adds credence because that's kind of the basis of the story. The super wealthy man. On top of that, the other evidence of her lying on public and presenting an image that he was a businessman, he was so wealthy and he takes financial care of her, when she was the one likely buying his clothes. Those really cool shades he was wearing, she bought them. It gets worse. So we have established their relationship. We spoke about who they were separately and who they were together. So we're going to talk about their core belief. What has encouraged these people to take up themselves and go into the Scottish Highlands? But they weren't always in the Scottish Highlands. Let me save you the trouble. They used to live in like an apartment complex before. Maybe like 2 years ago or a year ago, they used to live in an apartment complex. So this emergence of them living in the Scottish Highlands is something completely new. Now, what I noticed when the press came to do an interview with King Kumbala, or King Acheche, right, was that he would always say, my kingdom, or the kingdom, or we, using that real royal speech, like the monarchs, and they say we and they really mean I, because they represent a nation. That was what King Acheche would say. Kind of annoying, but I get it. So he believes that he is the descendant of the Messiah, which means he believes that he is a true descendant of David, and that he is one of the lost Hebrew tribes that returned to Scotland to reclaim their ancestral lands that were taken away from them over 400 years ago by Queen Elizabeth I, where she deported all black people from Scotland and England. So that is what King Asheshe said. Queen Nandi is now saying that Isafi, Queen Nandi, and King Asheshe, they are descendants of the indigenous black people of Scotland, and who were deported for being Jacobites, descendants of the biblical Jacob. Now, in their defense, because I have to research things and see where everybody's coming from, there is a reference to this claim in the British archives. There are proclamations made by Queen Elizabeth I, I think it was in 1590, speaking about deporting all blacks from her realm. And it's well known by historians that her government would normally use black people as scapegoats. So there was a mass expulsion of blacks from the kingdom. That actually did happen. But I have some questions. Where is the evidence that he is in fact the descendant of those expelled from England over 400 years ago? Does he have any proof that his ancestors actually owned any land whatsoever? None of these questions have been asked, none of them have been answered, and none of them can be answered. On July 7, 2024, Queen Nandi was pregnant, and she posted a YouTube video stating that basically while she was pregnant, and this is before Lady Safi came in the picture, or Lady Safi as we know her to be, Akira Taylor. When she was pregnant on July 7th, 2024, she posted a YouTube video saying that she was just having the worst time and they were being persecuted. So based on this YouTube video, Nandi is saying that this was before, mind you, they lived in the woods. And I think they lived in the woods because they realized that the community did not like them living in whatever housing setup that they lived in. So she was saying that they were being treated terribly and that they were essentially being persecuted because they said people were banging on their door, children were banging on the door, the parents were encouraging them to bang on the door. She even spoke about a rock was thrown through the window, and being pregnant, that was super stressful for her, and that was really sad. I'm not going to lie. However, I do believe somebody could be a victim and a perpetrator at the same time. They could be a victim of one incident, but also perpetrate harm in another circumstance. So while Nandi was a victim of this attack, she was also the perpetrator of harm, especially when it comes to the Lady Safi that existed before. You will find out that there was a Lady Safi that existed prior to the one that exists as Akira Taylor. So while she's being hurt and terrified, and honestly, I wish I could sympathize with her, I'm aware of the other things that she's done, which is a lot worse, in my opinion, than people wanting you to leave because you are intimidating in the community. During that same video, she goes on to tell us that her husband was just walking with a stick and he was arrested and thrown on the ground. Now, if you know about the kingdom of Kumbala, when they go out and about, they never just mind their business and stay quiet. All the videos that I've seen would have been them being really like loud, and they're talking and they're like saying, you know, whatever they're saying. Like at this point, why bother speak the language of the Edomites, right? Why not just speak your Kumbala language? They were speaking really loud, and I don't want to just say, oh, they sounded really scary, but they did sound really scary. If I was there, I would call the cops, because this is really terrifying. Like, you are screaming and shouting and talking about, I don't know, demise and the kingdom of Kumbala is here. Like, that is horrifying. That is what I think he was doing when he was just walking with his stick. And so somebody might have felt threatened, and I'm not surprised, and they called the police. And of course, if you are someone who you don't believe in the system that's put in place, when the system comes through the form of police officers trying to protect and serve and preserve peace, you are going to think that you are under attack. Like, how dare the Edomites touch me, and try to ensure that the rest of the general public just have like a really stress-free safety. That's what I think happened. The police approached him, and of course, when these things happen, I think he was disturbing the peace. I think he's shouting and stuff like that. I believe that he don't like Edom. So when he saw Edom, he started to get on. And what happened was that, of course, they had to take him into custody and arrested him, because now he might have been getting aggressive. He may not have been wanting to participate. He might have wanted to continue with what he was doing. And so he ended up in jail. So Nandi is saying that for months and months, they have been persecuted and have been jailed consistently for months. At least her husband have been jailed consistently for months. And this makes sense in my head based on the theory that I have when it comes to this, where he was going about like spreading his Kumbala message and shouting with his stick, and every month he would probably do something like that and they would like arrest him, right? So that is what makes me super suspicious about this victimhood. And then she states that she was really disappointed in her fellow men because there were other Nigerians and other Africans there, and they just like stayed indoors. And even though her husband was going through whatever he was going through with the police, it was the Asians, and they call them something ites, like, you know how people are Edom and they are like Jacobites. The Asians, they call them something ite, right? So I don't know what they're calling them, but it's along those lines. So just imagine, right? All of this is gibberish. So you might as well just make up whatever you want to make up. She was really praising them because after everything she went through, them the locals breaking down the door with the children, with the stone through the window, all of that happened. It was the Asians and not the Nigerians or any person of an African diaspora who would reach out to help them. And what do you mean you're surprised? I would avoid you too. Like, I don't want these people thinking like this is some kind of new stereotype that they didn't know about. Like, I don't want them to think that we could get down like this and that I'm helping you because I'm aware of this culture. And then they're gonna look at me sideways like, be for real. Apparently the Asians downstairs, they owned a pizza place. I'm just throwing that in because I love food. And so she was really thankful for their help. So she's given us this long story, this sub story about her husband. Mind you, that baby that she had did not remain in her custody. It was taken away from her. So I said that I wouldn't go into the custody battle, but they were arrested with charges of child cruelty, and they arrested Queen Nandi, King Acheshe, and Queen Nandi's oldest daughter, which is not King Acheshe's child. I would assume she was arrested because she had attained the age of majority at that point in time, and so she went with her parents to jail. I don't know why they released her on bail, I think, But she went out, she was out. After that custody battle, the Scottish Council, or whatever they call there, dropped the charges. And this is really disappointing, simply because I just feel like this is one time when you don't have to tiptoe around being politically correct or race issues. I feel like these people are an actual threat to their environment. What happened was that when the council took their children away, they went to the foster home and began threatening the lady outside and cursing her and slipping judgment or damnation scrolls through the slot. So when the lady came to testify, right, she didn't want to come in person because obviously she felt very threatened. And they are now celebrating this as if this is their God working on their behalf. I don't know who. Akira was not the first lady Safi, nor was she the only person that was supposed to move into the camp at around the time that she did. In fact, she was supposed to move in with this person, with this boyfriend that she had, who I don't know his name. I think he was just way too embarrassed about the situation. But he was supposed to move in with her, and I think he was considering it. And he claimed, based on the press reports, that he didn't bother to do any of it because he was terrified of their demonic and satanic activity, and he just decided that he would not stay. So he went back home, and that is how I believe the family got information on the, at least not, if not the location, the exact location of the camp, but at least the fact that she was in Scotland. And I think that is what made them maybe scan the news, look for any clues from Scotland as to where their daughter might be. Moving on to the dark side of this entire thing, Lady Safi. The first Lady Safi that existed, not the second Lady Safi that there is, Akira Taylor. We are talking about the, what I believe to be the original Lady Safi is what I'm going to call her. And respectfully, her name is Aaliyah Johnson. Aaliyah Johnson came from America, and she moved in with the two-person religious organization, Queen Nandi and King Asheshe. At that point, I don't believe that they lived in the woods just yet when she first came in. Aaliyah Johnson was a girl from Zimbabwe. And basically, once again, you see the same characteristics of this really young woman. She was super young. She was 20 years old. Obviously very naive. She was really soft-spoken, and she truly believed in their cause. She was, again, the handmaiden of Queen Nandi, and she sought after her hand and foot, much like what Akira Taylor is doing. However, there was some differences. Aaliyah Johnson was the second wife of King Asheshe, whereas Akira Taylor is simply the handmaiden. Now, why do you think that switched up? I remember looking through their Facebook posts, and I saw where Aaliyah Johnson was being introduced as Lady Safi, the second wife of King Asheshe, and somebody in the comments said, "Oh my God, she's so beautiful. She speaks so well. You're gonna get jealous, and both of y'all are gonna fight, and your heart is gonna get wounded, and she is gonna take his love from you," or something like that. Queen Nandi, just in her queenish ways, I'm guessing, she waved that away and said, "You don't know us, I'm a queen," or whatever. Basically, she's not going to show any jealousy. Lo and behold, guess what happened? Aaliyah, fire on the mountain. Based on the pictures that you saw, you could tell King Asheshe was head over heels for Aaliyah Johnson, and you could tell the way he looked at her, like, you could really tell that he liked her being there, Aaliyah, and so made her the second wife. And Queen Nandi even posted about the fact that she was going to have a second or sister wife, and therefore the king. So Queen Nandi even made a post saying that King Asheshe told her that he was gonna take a second wife, and therefore she needed to step up into the post of queen, and that she was like saying, "Oh my God, she's so happy that her husband could get a second wife because she had been praying so long for him to get the second wife." Now, I don't know if you could tell, I don't feel like I need to say this, but I will. Polygamy is one of their secret rituals, their secret rites of their religious practice. So polygamy is one of their sacred rites of their religion. So she is obviously expecting that, and the king, and she's telling us this, the king gave her this talk about the fact that, you know, she's going to be queen and she can't be jealous or have any like shown jealousy towards his second wife. And he's not going to stand for any of it because she is the mother of the kingdom of Kubala. I'm so sorry, but she is the mother or the queen of the kingdom of Kubala, and she's supposed to be like an example to all the women in the world, and she is going to be heavily scrutinized by the public, and she cannot bring shame to like his harem. I wanted to say family, I wanted to say dynasty, but it's really his harem, right? She can't bring shame to his lifestyle. So she's down with this. So she on the outside is saying she loves Lady Safi. Now, I don't know exactly what happened to Lady Safi, but all we know is that Lady Safi disappears. She disappears and nobody knows what became of her. She stopped appearing in the YouTube videos. She stopped appearing in the Facebook posts. She just disappeared. And it was only until February the 29th of 2024 that they officially posted a detailed explanation of her disappearance. So according to the Kingdom of Kubala, Lady Safi, or more respectfully, Aaliyah Johnson, had disrespected the god Yahuwah. I'm thinking it's kind of like Jehovah mixed with Yahweh. I don't know what's going on there. But Yahweh is their god, and she disrespected their god because she listened to the Edomites of Zimbabwe that was telling her, girl, like, you are being brainwashed. You have to get out of there. Like, live your life. Like, these people are actually insane. Like, save yourself, girl. So she listened to them, and she was trying to get away from them, and she was trying to get out. This couple is so insane. All of their misdeeds are so deliberately and directly recorded online. It's absolutely insane that they just allow themselves to be their own worst enemy. Uncle and her granny came out and said the uncle said she was running away from them and that's why she died. And the granny had basically asked the UK authorities to investigate her granddaughter's death because, again, she was running away. Now, what you would think that with such heavy accusations being levied against you, you'd think that an ordinary person would probably lawyer up and try to stay off of social media. No. So they responded and posted this very long and detailed response of February 29th, 2024 about her death. They stated that she wanted to leave. The Edomites were telling her to leave and she wanted to, but from their own lips, you could hear that there was like a struggle in the home where she wanted to leave and she wanted to pack her things and they did not want her to go. Eventually, she did end up leaving and she ended up in Oklahoma. They are saying that it is because of their power and their God that curse that they levied on her came true. And that is the reason why she unfortunately passed away. So Leah Johnson is no longer with us. And they are saying that it was such a miraculous instance of an accident that it had to be, and it is evidence of their curse, and that curse of like death that would linger on people who disrespect their religion and disrespect their cult. The circumstances of her death was reported on the Oklahoma news. Basically, she was homeless. She was wrapped in a blanket. Now, I don't know if she was walking across the road. I don't know if she was sitting down. I don't know if she was lying down. I don't know the circumstances. But what I do know is based on the report on the news that she was wrapped in this black blanket, likely trying to stay warm. And car crashed into her and threw her into a bus. And that's how she passed away. This is where all pity should be sucked out of your body when it comes to these kooks of Kumbala. Since that incident, they have now created a book about her life, but not really about her life, but about the downfall of Lady Safi, as they called her. And they are now publishing this book, and this book is 149, I think, or 145 pounds per copy. And basically, it's really disgusting. They are saying that this is the work of their god Yahuwah. Lady Safi disrespected their religion by what? Wanting to leave? That's what makes it a cult. Like when you get in, the fact that you can't leave, that's what makes it a cult. Now, they don't agree that their religion is a cult. However, they wrote a long discussion about Lady Safi that I just feel like after what you read on their website, you do not need to read the book. And I actually encourage people not to go on their website, look for the information outside, because the more you visit their blog is the more money they get through advertisements. So I'm just putting that out there. This is the first instance where you emphatically see their hate directed specifically to somebody, a couple people actually, on their website. So they're calling it the 12 judgments. And in this book, explaining Lady Safi's death, she, I guess, would be like the first judgment. And then the others, they will list of those that happen and those to come. So let's dig into the disappearance and death of Aaliyah Johnson from the perspective of King Asheshe and Queen Nandi. So according to King Asheshe and Queen Nandi, Aaliyah Johnson was ungrateful and she was introduced into like the height of the kingdom. And basically, they had posted that she had eaten the spoils of their kingdom, meaning that she had eaten at the fanciest restaurants in the United Kingdom. And honestly, my heart goes out to those restaurants. I know how it would have felt to have to entertain these people with scribbles all over their face, dressed in sackcloth. I'm kidding. I think they did dress up they did try to dress up to go to the restaurants, but they definitely did have scribbles on their face, like chalk. And then they also had bush in their hair. And they would sit in this restaurant and they had the pictures of them like taking pictures. And there was Aaliyah Johnson sitting amongst them and she seemed to be having an excellent time. So they use these photos to show, oh my god, living in the lap of luxury. Just like how Queen Nandi first faked the fact that her husband was this big businessman, then you now see her literally showing off the fact that we went into luxury pools, and they call it the Northern Palace. This is Aaliyah Johnson, Queen Nandi, and King Asheshe basically relaxing in the luxury of the Northern Palace. And when you look at the Northern Palace, it's like, okay, and I'm pretty sure this is a hotel and this has nothing to do with any Northern Palace. Everything is kind of like an expose with them. Like they can't just be humble. And they also don't believe in the values that Christians believe. They believe in a completely Old Testament, brutal, bloodshed kind of thing, right? They don't believe Jesus is real. They don't believe in the God of the Christians. So don't even talk to them about turning the next cheek. So even in death, they want to use this as an example to teach others and to instill fear. And well, that's one of the things about cults. They love to instill fear into their followers, which is why no matter how hard they try, I will not just simply accept the fact that this is just hippies trying to live their life and have a good time. For people who don't like Edom, they sure are taking advantage of those Edomic benefits in life. You know, I mean, they didn't pay for the restaurant in Kubala coin. Basically, after they said all of this, they switched to, again, this is what happens to people who go against the King Asheshe, and the God Yahuwah will cast judgment down on her. And basically, out of their own mouth, they said that they proclaimed death on this girl. And when you read the blog spot and their website, you could hear the glee in the tone in the words that they typed, stating that, oh my God, we're living in the lap of luxury and poor Aaliyah Johnson, she can't come back to us. She has been expelled. She has no other choice but to live on the streets. And one thing to note is like, this is no vengeance of God, right? What I believe is that, like with any cult, cults are not special. There is no special thing about any cult. Cults are cults and they all have the same characteristics. Saying it's not a cult doesn't stop it from being a cult. What I believe likely happened is that when Aaliyah Johnson left, it was either when she was already financially unstable, so she didn't have really any money, and maybe that was what actually caused her to even feel the need to even the protection of this King Asheshe and be provided for. And I remember in one of the comments under, I think, that book, right, that that book that they were releasing on their blogspot, it looked like one of the family members or somebody who was really, really, really angered by her death and what they were saying had said that, you are no businessman, you are not wealthy, there is no luxury, you're a bum. And I think that could have been one of the reasons that attracts a lot of young women who are not really financially stable just yet. One of the things is an old guy, especially if your family isn't very much invested in your life. You have like an old man and his wife talking about a kingdom, selling you a dream and saying that they're going to provide for you. And you see evidence of some kind of life that you don't think that you could ever provide for yourself. Doesn't matter to us that it's just chum change. But if that person in their head thinks that that is forever out of reach for them, if they see that this person is able to provide this, plus a sense of community that they believe they don't have, it's likely that they're gonna go towards it like a moth to a bright light. So it's either she wasn't financially stable to begin with, or when she went there, as many cults do, I don't know if this is what happened, but many cults require you to hand over your savings to them or send it in advance before you arrive. So it wasn't that she ended up homeless because of a curse. She ended up homeless because likely that she gave all her money to Queen Andy and this King Asheshe. That's what happened, in my opinion. I think that's what happened because that's the likelihood of what exactly happened. So the reason why I think these people are an actual threat to Scottish society and society in large is because the image that they gave the newscaster isn't the actual image that they belief. Their actual beliefs are so concerning and strange. So if they actually had a sign up hanging from their windowsill saying that they would the children will be dashed upon the earth and they'll die or something like that. So they're saying that basically their Yahuwah, or maybe them, I don't know, would dash these children onto the earth and cause death. And this is normal biblical language. This is why, pardon me, just excuse me from that book, but this is actually normal biblical language in the Old Testament, right? That's all well and good, but this is modern time. So that in itself would be very scary. And I find like that would be a threat to the public. Like, why are the Scottish police pussyfooting around these people? I have no idea. But they say that they're safe and they're hippies. Now, when you look on their website, there are so many things of concern, which I will be going through. They have their true goals, as I like to put it. These are their true goals. They are all for world domination. So while the Scottish people are pussyfooting, thinking this is all kumbaya, my lord, and they think that everybody is all well and good, and they think that these people are hippies, like they would have wanted them to believe in that press meeting. These people believe in world domination. They believe in the new world order where Kubala Kingdom will reign and everybody will bow to King Asheshe, right? And he will be the one who will rule everyone. Those two crazy people who you see standing out there in the woods, that's what they believe. Secondly, the children of the Edomites will be dashed to pieces. I already spoke about that. Not only did they have that sign outside of their window, but they also had that sign. They also had that posted as a blog article, and they went on to describe how it would be a bloodbath essentially, and Edom would be defeated. They believed COVID-19 was the mark of the beast. The first, apparently there are multiple, but it's the first part of the mark of the beast. And this is the biggest one, where I don't understand why the Scottish authorities don't feel like this is like treason. But basically on their website, they are not just claiming that they belong, they need their lands. Like, has anyone asked them, what are the lands? What is the expanse of the lands they're talking about? I think people think that they want to have like a lands, like a couple acres. That's what I think is going through people's head. These people don't want a couple acres. They believe that they are in fact the true rulers of Britain. Charles and Queen Elizabeth are frauds, and they are Edomites or whatever they keep calling that. So while this government is playing pussyfoot with these people, They're not playing with you. And I think it's just so sly that they did not come out directly and say that we believe that we are the true king of this country. No, they angled it as if we want ancestral land. What is ancestral lands? No, they want that land, that entire land. Every time you see them, they always angle themselves just right to appear to be a victim. And people think like, oh my God, like, they're just misunderstood. They're not misunderstood. You're misunderstanding them. So this book that they're going to release, The Life of Aaliyah Johnson, they're not calling her that, but that's not the name of the book, but it's The Life of Aaliyah Johnson. I think before I go into what I want to talk about, I think it's really disgusting and really, really, really revolting that they, after claiming to be the cause from their own mouth, claiming to be the cause of this girl's death, now are attempting to turn around and profit off of her demise, abuse, likely manipulation, very likely, in my opinion, some kind of trafficking situation. They still intended to profit off of it. And I believe that this is evidence of the fact that they are so money hungry, it's hard to hide. In this book, another person that they took advantage of, that they want to take advantage of their trauma and an untimely death in their life, would be somebody called Prince Norman. So Prince Norman apparently is a Black Hebrew Israelite, but however, he did not believe in the fact that King Asheshe is the Messiah and he is the descendant of David and all of that. So he didn't believe any of that, and he was very outspoken on social media about the fact that they're insane. And he had a child, the baby passed away sadly, and these people wrote in their book that King Asheshe had cursed the child and that's why the child died, and they are very gleeful in the fact that the child is dead. And now they're saying, pay us money to learn about all of these curses that we spoke about these people, etc., etc. You may not believe in curses, I may not believe in curses, but what is the most important thing that we need to understand in this world is intention. If somebody believes that they have the power to say something, and they believe that what they have said has directly caused a certain result, let's say the death of a certain person, and even though there is no correlation to what they said and what had happened, if they believe that they are the cause of that demise, they are gleeful about it and they turn around and try to profit off of it. It doesn't matter whether you believe it's true or not. That whole concept that just happened in that thought process that happened in their mind just shows you exactly the type of persons that they are. After that, there's a list of people, and it was so disgusting, and they want you to buy it and they want you to fear them. And it's a fair tactic to show that nobody could leave our group, nobody could say anything about our group because we have this supernatural power. That's another thing that's promised to his followers: supernatural powers. However, there is a group of false prophecies that I would like to go through to show that these are all coincidences. All the things stated before about the deaths, I believe, happened, and they just ascribed it to some curse, because there was no curse posted on a particular day long before this happened. It just kind of happened, and they said, yes, we had said this before, but there's no proof that they ever said it or cursed anyone. I think another scummy thing that they're doing is trying to see any negative things happening in people's lives. Like another woman they don't like, her mother committed suicide, and they said, yes, we cursed her. But what is hilarious, and I think is a bright light for people who might be feeling terrified of these people, is that you have so many false prophecies where they slipped up and they try to predict something and it never happened. So you have YouTube will be closing, and that was on the 29th of February 2024. YouTube was shutting down. They said on this day they proclaimed that YouTube would shut down. Never happened. They said that Netflix will shut down on this day. That day was November 29th, 2023. Never happened. They said the end of the world was going to be December the 15th, 2023. And they said it was the end of the world. And they said that, the planes are shut down, that the airports are closed. It's going to be the end of the world. Never happened. They said famine never happened. And of course, they have all these things that they claim. Yeah, so that was the whole story. Not really. I kind of did not speak about certain things because I just felt like it was just too much. Like there's John Fagan, who was this white man, an Edomite. He's there on their website, face painted down with the scribbles, and he is the hand of the king. I don't know what became of John Fagan. I actually have no idea why he was there. He's an Edomite. He shouldn't be there, but he was there, and he doesn't really seem to have much weight in the story. If anything changes, I will let you guys know. But until then, that is the end of my telling of the Kingdom of Kubala situation, or as I like to call them, the kooks of Kumbala. So that's it, and I hope to see you again soon.